In a secured island community situated in Montreal, a biotech firm is commissioned to maintain the grounds of an exclusive golf club. They utilize their latest fertilizer, which when sprayed not only melts the snow but also ensures the grass remains lush and green throughout the winter, enabling affluent individuals to enjoy golf year-round. The following day in the town, Dan, the security guard, brings various supplies to his residence. A fervent survivalist, he constantly prepares for worst-case scenarios, influenced by a radio show that embraces every conceivable conspiracy. Tonight, Dan is engrossed in practicing fire-making without matches, but his efforts prove futile. In a moment of frustration, he resorts to using the powder from a shotgun shell, resulting in a small explosion that singes one of his eyebrows. Meanwhile, at the golf club, Dan's daughter Patricia serves as a caddy, and Michelle, the CEO of the biotech company, engages in a golf game with an affluent couple to showcase the exceptional condition of the grass. Unbeknownst to them, the fertilizer treatment causes particles to proliferate beneath the soil, contaminating the town's water supply. In a studio, an actor named Jacques consumes tap water before heading out to run errands. At the grocery store, all fruits and tools are washed with the same tap water, and water is sprinkled on shelves to maintain the freshness of perishables. Suddenly, Jacques experiences dizziness, which he dismisses for the time being. Upon returning home, he notices his teeth turning green and experiences stomach discomfort. Eventually, he discovers his wife in the bathroom, now transformed into a zombie, and succumbs to the same fate after biting her, initiating her transformation. Back at the club, Michelle and the affluent couple return to the main building, only to find it deserted. Suddenly, a man rushes out, warning them to run as people are falling ill. Simultaneously, a dog appears, and the wife attempts to call it over, but the animal aggressively attacks her, biting her neck. Michelle and the husband quickly fend off the dog, only to encounter more approaching zombies. As the woman undergoes a transformation, the two men hastily retreat into the building, locking the door to keep the zombies at bay. Despite their efforts, the dog sneaks in, biting the husband in the leg, and they secure it in another room. In a separate room, zombies congregate at the door, pounding relentlessly. The husband transforms and pursues Michelle, who seeks refuge in the kitchen after grabbing a knife. Meanwhile, in town, Dan receives a call from an elderly lady reporting noisy and quarrelsome neighbors. When he arrives, the neighbors reveal themselves as zombies, and the old lady undergoes a transformation, chasing after Dan. Panicking, Dan hides in his car, attempting to call for backup, but receives no response. As more zombies appear outside his window, Dan also tries calling Patricia, who is occupied with escaping from zombies and doesn't answer. Worried, Dan decides to abandon the company car, opting for his own vehicle equipped with a weapon to search for his daughter. Close by, teenager Andrew nearly uses tap water for his sister Annie's milk, but his mom reminds him to use bottled water for the baby's safety. Moments later, the mother begins feeling dizzy, and soon she transforms into a zombie, chasing after Andrew through the house. Terrified, Andrew escapes outside but is pursued by his zombified mother. In a desperate move, Dan hits her with his car, injuring her but leaving her alive. Despite Andrew's desire to help, Dan stops him, explaining that 911 is unresponsive. Dan advises Andrew to hide in his house and leaves. More zombies approach, but Andrew refuses to abandon his mother, dragging her back inside and securing the doors. Attempts to call 911 result in a recorded message declaring the island's quarantine. At the island's bridge, police have sealed it off, preventing anyone from entering or leaving. Meanwhile, Andrew struggles to protect his baby sister from his zombified mother, who notices water from the showerhead and decides to enter the tub. Meanwhile, Annie's incessant cries draw more zombies to gather outside the door. In a bid to muffle the noise, Andrew covers her with pillows, a blanket, and a large plushie until the crying becomes inaudible, prompting the zombies to disperse. When Andrew's cat returns through the pet door, a zombie reaches inside, nearly grabbing him. Andrew leaves the room momentarily, causing the zombie to freeze, only to resume movement upon Andrew's return with the golf club. Surprisingly, the zombie refrains from attacking, choosing instead to hide. At the golf club, Patricia seeks refuge in the garage and finally manages to call her father for assistance. Dan promptly arrives, encountering a horde of zombies outside. Without hesitation, he engages in combat, swiftly dispatching some with a knife and incapacitating others before hurrying inside. The following morning, Annie's nanny attempts to use the bridge for her commute, only to find it destroyed. Meanwhile, Andrew records the zombies outside, briefly pausing to watch a press conference featuring the Minister of Public Security. Just as Andrew's phone battery dies, he checks on his mother, noticing she is covered in green goo. Annie crawls in, and the zombified mom attempts to attack her. Andrew creates noise and shakes her favorite vegetables, diverting her attention. They reach the living room, where the mom accidentally collides with a TV stand, causing the television to fall and fatally injure her. Heartbroken, Andrew is left with no choice but to move the body back to the bathroom. He observes grass growing on her injuries and attempts to use her phone, only to discover it's broken. Taking a ladder to the front door, Andrew peeks outside, confirming that the zombies are merely standing in the sunlight. Frustrated with confinement, he grabs a golf club, places Annie in a baby carrier, and opens the door, allowing the zombies to see the cat and chase after it. With the entrance now cleared, Andrew sprints towards the grocery store with the zombies in pursuit. As he reaches the locked doors, nearly surrounded by the monsters, a sudden opening reveals Dan, who pulls him inside. Having been in the store since yesterday, Dan has created a makeshift camping area but lacks a concrete plan. Patricia, who has also been infected. Dan keeps her around, hopeful that someone may find a cure. Meanwhile, at the golf club, Michelle fortifies all doors and uses a radio to communicate with his company's personnel. The zombie dog continues to bark, irritating Michelle, who kicks it away. It is revealed that he has killed his friend in the kitchen. Dan and Andrew then discuss their options and agree to find the cause behind the outbreak to develop a vaccine. Dan theorizes that it may be in the water, the common factor among all victims. Due to his paranoia, Dan avoids drinking tap water and even speculates that terrorists might have poisoned it. The trio, including Patricia with her head caged to prevent biting, leaves the store. A little girl attacks Dan upon seeing him, but he pushes her away without the heart to kill her, and they press on. The group successfully enters Dan's car before the pursuing zombies catch up, escaping the danger zone. Meanwhile, a pair of armed twins dispatched by the biotech company arrives at the golf club, effortlessly shooting down any zombies in their path. Inside, Michelle burns all contracts and documents related to the deal with the club, retaining a small sample of the fertilizer. The twins locate him, and Michelle seizes one of their suitcases containing cure spheres designed to eliminate the infection within 24 hours. As he grabs his sphere, the twins capture him, compelling him to ingest the fertilizer sample before rendering him unconscious. In the struggle, the cure sphere falls to the floor, eventually returning to the survivors. They reach the water plant and decide to leave Annie in the car to avoid attracting zombies with her crying. Unable to leave Patricia with the baby, Dan and Andrew bring her along. Upon entering the building, Patricia senses a grassy zombie hiding in the water and rushes to find it, prompting the others to follow. She jumps into a pool and Dan jumps in to rescue her. Suddenly, another zombie surfaces, nearly attacking them. When Dan finds Patricia, he uses her as a shield, causing the other zombie to retreat. Andrew realizes that zombies won't harm each other, but the alert monster chases him outside, attracting more zombies. Trying to get Patricia out of the water, Dan accidentally tears off her arm. Eventually, Andrew reaches the car and hides inside, followed by Dan using Patricia as a shield. They join the siblings in the car, and Andrew discovers Patricia's phone, using her severed arm to unlock it. Dan's group arrives, spotting the peculiar smoke on the grass. Andrew records everything as they rush to the front door, finding it locked, prompting Dan to search for another entrance. Having climbed the roof, Dan opens the door for the others and locks Patricia in a storage room, while Andrew creates a playpen for Annie using chairs. While investigating the building, they find the zombie dog still breathing and covered in grass. Dan begins feeling dizzy, and Annie starts crying, prompting Andrew to rush to her aid. However, he discovers she has escaped the playpen. As Andrew searches for his sister, Dan explores a dark corridor and stumbles upon bombs set to detonate soon. Despite feeling worse, Dan presses on until he finds the room with a timer connected to all the explosives. Too weak to stand, he uses Patricia's arm to stop the timer right before his eyes turn green. Outside, the twins notice no explosions and return inside to investigate. Finding Annie in the kitchen, they feed her the fertilizer before leaving. Meanwhile, Andrew discovers a zombified Michelle in a locked room and runs in the opposite direction, eventually finding his sister. In another room, the twins attempt to feed Andrew the fertilizer, but before they can drop the sample, Annie turns into a zombie and bites the twin's finger off. Dan almost attacks the other twin, but Andrew intervenes, causing Dan to bite her. Stepping on the cure sphere, Andrew releases the smoke that begins working inside Danny and Dan. Simultaneously, the twins shoot each other before one completes the transformation. Andrew uses Dan's old school phone to make Patricia's phone ring, creating a video explaining the situation and pleading for help. While the video reaches the news, Andrew takes Dan to the storage room to be with his daughter. The government sends army helicopters to eradicate the zombies, with soldiers using flamethrowers. Andrew goes out to ask for help, bringing Patricia's arm for vaccine production. However, another survivor reaches the soldiers first and is shot down. As the cure takes effect and Annie recovers, Andrew decides to hide, realizing the soldiers aren't there to save anyone. In the golf club, Dan also recovers, but when the soldiers open the door, they immediately burn him and Patricia down. The Minister of Public Security announces the successful containment and elimination of the infection, but a suspicious detail surfaces as he drinks from a mug with the biotech company's logo, implying his involvement in the conspiracy. Meanwhile, Ander continues wandering and discovers more bodies of survivors who were shot down. Suddenly, he spots something in the river, a boat of volunteers led by Annie's nanny, who rescues him without hesitation. As they depart from the island, Ander recognizes the arm's uselessness and tosses it into the water. A fish takes a bite, swiftly turning into a zombie, concluding the movie. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this.